Hi, everybody. A warm welcome to all our esteemed panelists and all of you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to Entrepreneurship Bootcamp 0 to 1, How to Build the Future by IMC YLF. The Indian Merchant Chamber of Commerce and Industry, is a premier chamber of commerce in the country with a rich legacy spanning well over 100 years of excellent service to trade, industry, and commerce. Through its various expert committee, IMC provides policy inputs for the government, both central and state, and is continually engaged in interaction with policymakers at various levels. A large membership base, including over 150 trade organizations, enables IMC to reach out and stay connected with a few lakh business establishments, covering diverse areas of economic activity. Also, the Chamber has an expansive global network with formal understanding with over 150 chambers and government agencies. The IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry platform offers its members the benefit of global networking opportunities to explore and expand business. Our today's topic is the business of cryptocurrency. An increasing number of companies worldwide are using Bitcoin and other digital assets for a host of investment, operational, and transactional purposes. So, to discuss the cryptocurrency sector, we have the privilege to have with us today the experts who are the very best. We're happy to have with us Mr. Jaideep Reddy. Jaideep is a dual qualified technology lawyer at Nishit Desai Associates, licensed to practice in India and California. He advises on cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, payments, privacy, and cybersecurity, and other technology-related issues. He was ranked as a notable practitioner by Chambers and Partners in its FinTech Guide. We are also extremely happy to have with us Mr. Suraj Ramakrishnan. He's a CA, an entrepreneur, a crypto investor, and enthusiast. He leads sales and business development and investor relations at Mintingham, which is a boutique investment management firm for all your digital assets. It provides premium research and asset management services to individuals and institutions. We also have the privilege to have this session moderated by Mr. Suril Desai. Suril is an international lawyer at Nishit Desai Associates and an expert on cryptocurrency and blockchain. In 2013, he spearheaded the blockchain and cryptocurrency practice along with industry leaders. He was instantly enthralled by Bitcoins and blockchain's potential impact on global society. He is also an extremely talented painter, having had art exhibitions in Madrid, Spain, Rome, and Italy. I'll hand it over to Suril to take it ahead. Thanks, Suril.
Thank you so much for the kind introductions, Vidhi. It's an extreme honor and privilege to be talking to all of you all this Tuesday afternoon. I apologize, but there's some construction work going on in my building, so there might be some drilling sounds intermittently that might just appear when I'm speaking. And I hope that this session helps you in some way in better understanding Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. So let me get right into the session and let me give you a little bit of a background about how I got involved in cryptocurrencies. It was around 2012 and I was researching privatization of space exploration. And at that time, companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin were just emerging, and they were talking about doing private space programs. And at that point, I was on one of the community forums, and I chanced upon the word Bitcoins, and I was like, what is it? And then I asked a colleague of mine, and he told me that you have to look into it. And as soon as I read up on it, I was completely amazed by what this technology offered and what promises it held. And then I just got completely enamored by it. And long story short, we ended up advising the crypto companies in 2013-14 when the first raids took place and when the first ban by the Reserve Bank was put on them. And soon after that, in 2018, we again, me along with my colleague Jaideep, who is with me here, uh, we fought the case against the Reserve Bank's notification on the ban challenging the notification on the ban on cryptos, and which we won in March of 2020. And since then, the crypto markets have just been going crazy, like, I mean, right now we are seeing that there is a little bit of a downturn in the prices of Bitcoin, but that doesn't really tell you much. That's just because the global sentiment globally is a little low. And, to kick off the session, I would like both Jaideep and Suraj to, you know, uh, tell, would be great if they could tell us what Bitcoin is or isn't according to them, since they are the experts in this, and I'm only just the facilitator for this conversation. It would be great to hear for about, a 2-3 minute description of what Bitcoin means to them and what it is. So go ahead, Suraj.
Great. Firstly, thank you, the chambers and the Young Members Forum for having me, and Suril, obviously, to inviting. And all of us know Suril has been a pioneer in this field, and really glad to share my thoughts on this August session on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll try and keep the conversation as non-technical as possible, because we understand that a lot of people are coming from normal folks of life and could not probably fathom the technical. So we'll try and keep the conversation as simple and best as we can. So to give you a brief about Bitcoin and how I see it personally, to understand Bitcoin, let's probably take a minute or so to understand how money and the entire monetary system has transformed over the years, right? So beginning with probably thousands of years back, you had people and civilizations, exchanging commodities. It could be rice, it could be wheat, it could be anything, right? Anything that you grow at your home was exchanged, and that what is called was barter system. This was way civilizations back. Post that, there was a time when civilizations found out that there are some metals which are precious, like it could be gold, silver, copper. And then people started to move from the barter system to metals. From metals, obviously, we transformed into paper currency, as we all commonly know as fiat currency, right? That is what was the next jump. After fiat currency, also over the last maybe 2-3 decades, we had the financial services boom, where you had plastic money. Yeah, you had debit cards, credit cards, and all of that. And now we are at a stage where we have something called virtual currency or digital currency, which is nothing but a currency which is global, which can be accessed by anyone from anywhere at any point of time. So for me, Bitcoin, it may be a store of value for someone, it may be a mode of payment for someone and things like that. But I feel that it is a virtual currency which is based on probably one of the best technological innovation after the internet, which is the blockchain. So blockchain is the fundamental of the Bitcoin cryptocurrency today. And for me, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin both are completely synonymous, or anonymous, right? A lot of people feel that probably Bitcoin is same as any cryptocurrency. No, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, and one and only Bitcoin is what I look at. It could be store of value, where you have corporations and institutions in the US and worldwide accumulating balance sheet money to Bitcoin, because they feel that it is a quite big a hedge to normal traditional investment assets. So that is what Bitcoin for me is today, where the underlying technology is the blockchain, which is being leveraged. It works on something called proof of work, which is again a very technical term, but yes. So it is immutable. It's a peer-to-peer network, and all of us know that it was the first digital peer-to-peer network that came back in 2008.
Hi everyone, nice to be here. Thanks for having us here. I don't have that much to add to what Suraj said. Possibly the only thing is the way to envision it is that traditionally one required an intermediary to enable the transfer of value in a secure manner, whether it was a bank or a registrar or a stock exchange or any other intermediary. What Bitcoin first enabled, which people were trying to solve for some time, is that it enabled one person to transfer value to another person across the internet without a central intermediary. So the entire network acted to facilitate the transaction, but there's no single intermediary. And what that enabled is it decentralized the trust. So rather than having a single point of failure, you have the trust spread out across the entire network. And you also possibly save some costs associated with the traditional intermediaries based system, since it is a decentralized system. Of course, there are trade offs with having every transaction go through an entire network as opposed to a single party. So that was essentially the paradigm shift, and it's still playing out as we speak. It's not that Bitcoin and crypto has come as a panacea for everything. It has its own challenges. It has its own drawbacks as well. So it is kind of something where it is something new like the internet, where the internet too had its own drawbacks and challenges. So we'll have to see as it plays out, but there is definitely some uh, use case of Bitcoin and other cryptos in certain areas of our daily life where we should be open to embracing them. Yeah, we can add on as we go along.
Sure. No, that was very interesting perspectives, like for me, Bitcoin has always been this alternative to traditional banking system. And, all these years, we never really had a choice to use any other system other than the centralized banking system for all our business and life-related activities. And now suddenly we have an alternative, and this alternative is the beauty is that it's not a mandatory system. It's not like the fiat system, which is mandatory, that you have to use the Indian rupee or the US dollar, which is backed by the government, and which is used by the use of more, what I would call, by the use of force. And unlike that, Bitcoin is a voluntary system in which people can choose or not choose to be a part of. That said, I would like to see, since its inception, Bitcoins has, like, I remember in 2009 or 10, $1 would buy you 1,500 Bitcoins, and today one Bitcoin is about 40,000 odd dollars, and it had shot up to almost 66,000 dollars at one point. And what I would like to ask the panelists is that what caused this huge upward trend in the prices of Bitcoin going up so significantly? I don't know how many 1,000% it is, but it's a huge jump, and in a very short period of time. So Jaideep, what do you think is the primary reason, or Suraj, whichever one of you want to take this up?
Sure, Jay, do you want to go first?
Sorry, there was some problem unmuting. I think Suraj, this is your domain, so I'll just supplement
Sure.
what you said.
Sure. I think the journey has been great. I mean, like Suril rightly put it, right? The demand for Bitcoin has been growing by the day. corporations are kind of accumulating it, and in the crypto space it's called hodling. So a lot of corporations, institutions, retail people have tried and entered the space. I think what really caused the entire financial service breakdown way back in 2008, that's probably the time when we saw the inception of Bitcoin as a white paper. And probably the first Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, as you may call it, was traded, that is bought and sold somewhere in 2009-10 is when people started doing it. And I'm sure all of you guys might have heard that the first transaction that probably happened using Bitcoin was a person in the US way back in 2009 bought pizzas from Papa John's, right? That was the first commercial transaction for Bitcoin. And since then, obviously, there has been a lot of things that have added on to it. So just if you were to talk about the inception of the blockchain, right? Why today is Bitcoin so popular? Because it's immutable, right? It can't be duplicated. It can't be forged. Everything is very, very transparent. These are some of the features of Bitcoin. Like, unlike a currency, right? We know that for a fact the US and a lot of major economies around the world have been printing fiat currency left, right, and center, right, from the time of the pandemic and until now. So there has to be an alternate investment asset pool if your real estate investments are not giving you return. Gold is not giving you much returns as expected. Investments in equities and all of that is also not giving you return. So in terms of an investment, something that would safeguard you against a lot of eventualities is something that was required way back in 2008, right? So today, when you have money deposited in your bank, you can't really trust a bank. That's how unsafe and insecure is what we feel, right? Whereas when you have Bitcoin in front of you, it can't be stolen, it can't be hacked as long as you're careful. So that was the need of the hour way back in 2008, 2009. And since then, it has only and only evolved. And you see a lot of people obviously jumping in. So the price that has gone up today, as what we can see, is purely based on the demand. And people have understood the usability of a Bitcoin or virtual currency, as you may call it, right? And that is why you have corporations coming in, you have banking channels, financial partners probably taking a pie out of this entire ecosystem, and that is driving the entire ecosystem. And again, innovation, right? Internet is something that came 2 decades, 3 decades back, and today it's blockchain and Bitcoin. So that is something that is obviously driving the demand up. And the most important thing that I've kept it for conclusion is that I'm sure all of us have heard it, that the supply of Bitcoin is limited, right? Gold also keeps increasing in supply year on year, obviously marginally, but Bitcoin, there are only and only 21 million Bitcoins that can be mined, right? So that is something that is very, very important to understand, and that is probably some of the reasons why we see the hike in prices that has happened now, and something that will continue to go forward also.
Jaydeep, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, not much. Probably the first wave of the first dramatic increase after it was in 2013. That was when I guess there was mainstream attention around crypto. The price hit around $1,000, I think. Then it plateaued and fell down. And then the next wave was, I think, around 2017-18, where it hit around $19,000-$20,000. That was fueled by a retail investor sentiment of excitement and trading. And then the recent one where it touched 60-65 appears by a lot of accounts to be driven by institutional positivity towards crypto as an asset class, whether it is large funds or corporates like Tesla putting it into treasury. So these are some of the factors, but ultimately the right price is something that none of us know. It is like maybe we are in the late 90s or early 2000s as far as tech stocks were concerned, when there was a lot of hype and excitement around a lot of tech stocks, and then the bubble burst. Of course, tech stocks are back in a big way. So nobody knows the right price. Amazon is back now, but pets.com went bust. So nobody knows what will survive, what won't survive, what is the right price. So people have to be careful in terms of how they ascribe value to the instruments, and make measured decisions, and probably not invest an overt amount which they can't afford to lose, and have a bad experience. So people, just because it's a young person's forum is what I'm saying, that maybe people shouldn't get carried away, but at the same time should dip their feet and get excited by this technology.
So, like you mentioned, like one of the big challenges with a lot of people in understanding and coming to terms with cryptocurrencies is the concept of mining. It appears in almost every cryptocurrency you choose, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or uh, Dogecoin. I don't know about Dogecoin, but probably Solana or Matic or whichever one you pick, they all have this concept of mining. And mining is a very confusing term for some people at times, and some people equate it with physical mining of gold and physical where we do mining of minerals. So how would how would you say, what would you how would you describe this process of mining to a lot of the enthusiasts who are eagerly looking at getting into the crypto space, and they think that mining is the probably the easiest way to get in, because you don't really have to go out there and shell out any money, and you can just mine it and earn it that way. Because I mean, as far as Bitcoin goes, I think mining is cost prohibitive right now for anyone to get into Bitcoin mining, but there are other coins which uh, individuals and people could mine. So how would you describe mining, in the simplest possible way? And before you answer that, I'd like to give a disclaimer that none of this should be taken as financial advice or legal advice, because I forgot to mention that in the beginning, and so that we can have a open and free discussion. Thank you. So Suraj.
Sure. So mining is a very simple method. I mean, it's a method by which transactions are verified and added in the blockchain or the block. And this is done by, nodes, which is again a technical language. But if I were to equate it, normal computers who are helping you to verify, validate the transactions on the blockchain of any protocol, like Suril mentioned, it could be Matic, it could be Ethereum, or it could be Bitcoin, right? So that is what is called the process of mining, where transactions are added to the block, verified and validated by nodes and computers, and as a reward for performing that particular action, you get rewarded in terms of that particular native token. So if you are mining, if you are helping validate transactions in Matic, you will get rewarded in Matic. If you are helping validate transactions in the Bitcoin network, you would get rewarded in terms of Bitcoin. When I mean reward, because any mining of a cryptocurrency requires a lot of resources. When I mean resources, it could be both financial in terms of efforts also. We all of us know that mining as a process basically involves putting in a lot of computational power to solve a very complex mathematical problem, which obviously involves the use of hardware and software applications. And for doing this transaction, you get rewarded by the blockchain in terms of the native token. So that is what basically mining is. There is a lot of misconception which I think I would want to put out on this forum, that mining is harmful for the environment and things like that. But yes, there was a period where a lot of non-renewable sources of sources were used, but nowadays a lot of green sources are being used. And even in the US, which again forms a majority of the mining pool, 50% or more of the mining pool comes from renewable sources. So yes, we are making inroads there, and that is what basically mining is all about.
So, so Jaideep, I just saw this one question that cropped up in the chat box, which said that in absence of regulations, how does one uh, go ahead with investing or starting a business in the crypto sector? So, what would be the one thing that, or a couple of things that you'd like to say, that how does one go about navigating this complex, uh, absence of regulations and things like that, and how does one cope with such a situation and get, how does one take that step to, to dip their feet in the crypto waters? Can we?
Yeah, I'm getting an error message that the host is not allowing me to unmute each time I try to unmute. So request the host to look into that. But yeah, basically regarding the question, there is no specific law around crypto as of now, but there are a variety of existing laws which apply to crypto activity. Whether it is buying and selling and paying taxes on that, or bartering it or holding it, a variety of existing laws apply. Of course, the clearest pronouncement of law which we have on that is the Supreme Court judgment, where, as Suril mentioned, we represented the Petitioners Internet and Mobile Association of India, in which the Supreme Court set aside the RBI circular on virtual currencies, where the RBI had earlier prohibited banks from facilitating crypto transactions of their users. The Supreme Court found that that was unconstitutional. So, in that judgment, the fundamental right to trade of a crypto exchange was recognized. And even prior to that, it was not illegal to hold or trade crypto. There was only a problem doing it through a bank, which of course was very problematic. So, per se, there's no illegality in holding or transferring or trading crypto, but there are a variety of issues that people should be careful about in terms of tax and cross-border activities. Any cross-border activity is likely to be governed by the Foreign Exchange Management Act, called FEMA. So, if you are transferring it to a foreign exchange or to a friend or relative abroad, or you're doing some interactions with a foreign platform, you need to be quite careful in terms of assessing whether that is compliant with FEMA. We've also seen the Enforcement Directorate take various proceedings recently. The other thing is, you should also check with your tax advisor about the IT and GST implications of whatever you do. You need to declare any income appropriately. You need to also check your GST obligations. So these are spaces where the regulators are becoming more aware and taking actions as well. So, to summarize, there's no prohibition, but there are also a lot of restrictions in terms of how it can be done. But for a retail investor, simply buying and selling on an Indian exchange, it is fairly straightforward. It is when they go to the next step and try to do more dicey things or risky things, maybe lending in a cloud platform abroad, etc. That's where the more tricky issues arise.
So that was really informative, Jaideep. Thanks, Suraj. Now shifting a few gears back, uh, I would request both of you all to describe what and how and why Bitcoins. How did you start this journey into cryptocurrencies and Bitcoins. You know, I mean, everyone has their pivotal moments. Like I mentioned, like for me, it was research during privatization of space exploration that I chanced upon this, and my journey began there. And so what would you say was the pivotal point that made you decide that, you know, Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies is the way for you to, you know, go forward?
Sure. So I think for me it was quite funny because this was the incident that happened. My father way back in 2015 told me that there is something on blockchain. He comes from a banking field. So as any obedient son, I did not read that article because who follows what fathers say, right? But this was way back in 2015 when there were a lot of hype around the blockchain part of it. Obviously, Bitcoin was there much earlier than that. And professionally, in 2017 is when probably I looked at Bitcoin and the crypto world quite seriously, where we were probably approached by an investor client who had investments in crypto, and he really wanted to see if we could use the fundamentals and the technicals of the traditional market and try and put that same knowledge into place in the crypto market. So that was probably a eureka moment for me personally, where we were already operating in the traditional market and there was an investor who came and said that, okay, I have some Bitcoins, why don't you see where we can take the investment to? And that's when I happened to obviously personally look at it, and that excited me even more. And that's what my journey, it's not as early as probably Suril. I'm sure, if you guys go to YouTube, you'll find Suril has been talking about Bitcoin 6, 7, 8 years back. So obviously not that early an entrant, but yes, maybe in the early part of 17 is when I figured this entire ecosystem.
Great. Jaideep?
Yeah, so I had heard of Bitcoin graduating out of college around 2012, 13. I did have some passing understanding of, hey, there's something called Bitcoin, but I really didn't know how it worked till around 2015, 16, when I joined this firm, actually, when it was probably there was not as much of a practice then because there was a lull in activity. But the person I work with closely, Vaibhav Parekh, he said, hey, Jaideep, let's write a paper on blockchain. So, and I had just joined and I had some time on my hands. So I had around 3 months to understand the ins and outs of the ecosystem at that time, which was really useful. And so since around 2016, I've been neck deep or in above my head in this ecosystem. We work with most of the leading exchanges in India and abroad. We work with various blockchain and crypto players all around the world. So there's a lot of activity in this space. It's very exciting. So, I mean, that one should also keep an eye on different things happening in the space and understand that um, crypto or blockchain is not only about Bitcoin. There's a lot of um innovation happening day by day. There, I mean, not just NFTs again, which are quite mainstream and understood quite well by many people by now, but applications on DeFi, that is decentralized finance, applications on decentralized voting and governance, decentralized organizations, which challenge the paradigm of what a company is about. Because even the company back in its day was an innovation. There was no idea uh, prior to the 1600s or so of an artificial legal entity. That itself was an innovation. And so now we have an idea of a decentralized organization. So all of these are paradigm shifts. There are also different consensus mechanisms. We talked about mining. Mining is one of the consensus mechanisms which is there in called proof of work. It's a part of that. There's proof of stake. There are various other consensus mechanisms with each new blockchain, and there are over 5,000 cryptocurrencies and tokens, each with its own white paper and technology. Stable coins have different implications. So there's always something new to learn. But of course, understanding Bitcoin is a great start, and then people can build on it day by day.
Thank you so much for that. Now I would like to ask some philosophical questions about the whole, about Bitcoins and cryptocurrency, mainly that, uh, philosophically, there's a big debate about centralization versus decentralization, and, and that becomes very fundamental to understanding of the whole ecosystem. And could either of you all shed some light on what is centralization versus decentralization, or do they have to exist simultaneously, or it is one or the other, or is it both? And kind of talk a little bit about the whole concept of decentralization, and because that's been an area of a lot of immense interest to me, because we've seen nations and economies being run from a very centralized perspective, that is from the perspective of the state, while cryptocurrencies suddenly comes as this thing which is completely decentralized, and it talks about democratization of finance, and which has never happened in the past. So I would like to have your perspectives on this concept of decentralization and centralization.
So I think, there are some landmark events that have happened over the last few decades. Obviously, 2008 was Bitcoin, 2015 was Ethereum, 2017 was something called smart contracts came into the picture, right? And DeFi, as you all know, is obviously decentralized finance, which followed the smart contracts in the early 18s, and 2019 is when we heard this term called DeFi. So what basically is DeFi? Is decentralized finance. Today, if I go to a bank, in very simple terminology, I go and deposit my excess funds in a bank, and the bank gives me some returns, and the same bank in turn, gives that money as a loan to someone who needs it, and obviously takes interest on that loan. So let's assume an ecosystem where the bank is missing, where all the other intermediaries who are working around the transaction are missing. I, as a person, have excess funds and I want some interest on that. Why don't I directly give it to the person in need, right? In a very, very reputable, mutable way, such that there is no fraud, either person is not disadvantaged, and the entire ecosystem is very, very clean and transparent. So that is what basically is all about DeFi, where you have hundreds and hundreds and millions of dollars that have been taken as loan, that have been given as loan, which have been staked as a deposit to get you income and things like that. So there are a lot of crypto projects that are primarily working on the DeFi platform. And like you had 2021 was probably the year of metaverse. That is something that a lot of people have heard about, metaverse and NFT and play to earn. And 2019 and 20 was the year of DeFi, where you saw a lot of DeFi platforms do really, really well. So keeping in mind the backbone of the blockchain technology, where intermediaries are not required. When I mean not required, you need intermediaries also. Let's not talk of a system where there will be no one to safeguard your rights. You need people to talk to, you need a customer service and things like that. So this is obviously that is in the evolving stage. But yes, if you were to take in context what basically DeFi is, it's a decentralized system of finance where anything and everything under the gamut of finance in terms of basic lending, borrowing, staking, trading, investing, all of that is done in a very, very transparent and decentralized way.
Jaideep?
Yeah, muting delay as usual.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think they will coexist, centralization and decentralization. A good example is the internet. today and the system of society today, right? Human society is naturally seems to have favored some centralization in some spheres of life, like the government, right? We don't have a fully anarchical, decentralized society where everyone uh, is self-governing and operates on their own terms. We've chosen a lawmakers system and a legal system, and we have delegated authority to some people to kind of govern us. And the same thing goes with trade. There are specialist traders, there are banks, there are various other institutions. So ultimately, in some spheres of society, things tend to get centralized naturally, and technology can do only so much. Even if there is a technical breakthrough on some spheres of life, whether it can create full decentralization is a question, but they can coexist. So, for instance, a simple example is the creation of content. 100 years ago, only newspapers would have the privilege of creating and distributing content, and maybe book publishers and a few other mainstream media sources. Today, anyone can create and distribute content all around the world. And similarly, communication. You needed post offices to actually help in communicating information from point A to point B. Today, you have a decentralized infrastructure known as the internet, which helps do that. Email is built on a protocol called SMTP, which is a decentralized protocol. Anyone can start their own email server and communicate with anyone. So decentralization does help. Also provides an opportunity for those who do not want to do everything in a centralized way. For instance, someone may choose to have store their documents on a decentralized cloud service provider, as opposed to a Dropbox or a Google Drive, for whatever reason. Right? They may feel that it's susceptible to hacking, or they may not believe in the values of a particular tech company. So decentralization provides that choice to actually go according to a wider community rather than a central party. But having said that, society is still governed by a lot of centralized institutions. People talk about blockchain in land records. Ultimately, the system of law still vests trust in the sub-registrars and the registries. So even if there is a technical solution, unless society chooses to amend the law and spread the trust, it will still be the sub-registrar who has control over the land records. So that is a push and pull, but overall it provides a wider degree of choice.
Great. So I'll ask two more questions, and then I'd like to open it up for, anyone who would like to ask some questions, and you can post them in the chat box. What do you think is the future of Bitcoins? Do you think governments and larger institutions like banks and central banks in particular would ban it, or would they allow it to exist? It's in the sense that, do you see that because of all the the amount of negative press that has attracted about Bitcoins and cryptocurrencies in particular, because of that, the governments feel that it's something that they have to be wary of? Because we've read reports about Reserve Bank being quite opposed to the idea of a cryptocurrency, even though it wants to create a cryptocurrency of its own. So what do you see emerging? How should people read into all this information and all this misinformation and information that's coming out from the press?
Okay, I think the classic example that Suril is referring to obviously is the fact that China has banned cryptocurrency and Bitcoin many times. So that is the joke that runs in the crypto space, that every 3 months, you will find that China has again banned cryptocurrency. Yes, but having said that, the way I look at it is that I would not want to restrict the discussion only to Bitcoin, because I am positive on Bitcoin as a virtual currency, but at the same time, I am quite positive on the underlying technology, which is the blockchain. Right? Just yesterday, I'm sure many of you guys might have read that the largest investment banks, including JP Morgan, has come up with a blockchain and crypto division of its own, and they have carried out many pilot projects. One being that they did yesterday, where the central bank of Bahrain was one of the parties, and you had a aluminium company, which was again based out of Bahrain, transfer some money using the fundamental coin of the JP Morgan blockchain, which is called Onyx, to a counterparty back in the US. So that transaction that ideally would have taken probably 7 days or 10 days through the traditional finance routes was completed using the blockchain system in just a jiffy. Right? So that is the power of blockchain and the digital currency. It's totally on how we use it. Right? Today there are a lot of scams that are happening because people find that this is an easy way to make money, but it's totally on how you use it. It's like the internet, right? You can see and read on the internet how do you make a destructive device. At the same time, you can have some upskilling done on the internet. So it's completely based on how you use it. Yes, it is an excellent technology, and going forward we will obviously see a lot of institutional interest, government interest. I'm sure, I think we missed the point that Bitcoin as a currency has been accepted as a legal tender in a South American country, and there are many more countries probably in the region that would follow this. Right? So having said that, the road ahead looks uh, perfect. When I mean perfect, there is a lot of hiccups that would come in place, but at the same time, when you have a company as large as MicroStrategy, who has accumulated $4 billion of Bitcoin on their balance sheet, I think that is an indirect endorsement to the world and to the institutions that yes, they are quite positive. The US has most recently come up with probably the ETF, again the ETF on the future market and not on the spot market. But yes, that is also a great inroad from where we were a couple of years back. Yes, so a lot of positive things happening, and the way forward is great. It's just that we are at the right place at the right time, and we need to be able to make good use of the opportunity that lies ahead of us.
Sure.
Yeah, I think institutional adoption has obviously increased. You have, Suraj indicated, El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. But overall, there is a more nuanced understanding that seems to be taking place in governments around the world. Of course, whether or not to adopt it as a legal tender is a purely economic decision, which most major countries are unlikely to take in the near future. But whether to regulate it as a recognized asset class is something that countries seem to be coming closer towards. Most major economies already have norms in place which provides clarity to crypto institutions, whether it's Canada, Australia, the UK, Japan, etc. Crypto institutions are required to follow KYC, AML norms. They are required to follow various regulations and often are required to be licensed. So I'm glad India so far has not gone down the ban route as it was expected earlier. A ban would also have constitutional concerns because there is a freedom guaranteed in the constitution to trade, and there are various other liberties which can only be restricted in a proportionate and reasonable manner, which is why the RBI circular again was set aside. So any outright ban would again suffer from those concerns. So India should also go towards a progressive regime where crypto institutions are regulated and licensed if they are managing user funds, or if there is a risk of loss of funds. They should definitely be regulated. But there needs to be a middle ground between a free for all and an outright ban.
So, considering we have about 13, 14 minutes left, what would be your advice to, the youth that's present in this August forum today, if they were to start their crypto journey as of today or within the next, after this webinar, if they were to start, what should they start with? Where should they look? What should they do? Where should they do their research? And because it's a crowded space right now, and there are so many uh, influencers per se who are, some of them are shilling. I mean, shilling is meaning promoting coins and things like that. And in such an environment, if someone were to, start looking at crypto, how should they begin their journey? Where should they begin? What should be the that one website or one Twitter handle which they should follow or something like that? Any recommendations on that?
Sure. So I think the potential is great, right? There is a four block approach to how we fundamentally evaluate any crypto project. So let's talk about two sides. If you are probably a person who is interested in the investment side, what do you do? And obviously, if you're a person who is interested to build something on the blockchain and crypto space, what do you do? So if you are probably interested on the investment side, in terms of what we call the Mintingham approach, there are four blocks that we always follow, which is QTGT, basically quality of the entire project. Technology, scalability is something that we look for. So that is Q, and T. Then G is obviously growth. What is basically the growth of the project? What problem is the project solving? See, remember that every crypto project which is over here is basically solving a real life problem. It's not a project just to scam people or to see what is the demand and supply and have something, right? They are solving a real life problem, and that is why they have a crypto project based on that. And obviously the incentive or the reward for that is the cryptocurrency, which is the underlying. So quality, technology, growth, and finally tokenomics is something that we look at when you are evaluating a crypto project from an investment side, right? And there are a lot of resources available on Google, YouTube. Some of the well known websites is probably Coin Market Cap, where you have details of all coins that are there. Coin Market Cap, CoinGecko, these are some of the websites which are there. And Messari is something that you can use if you are inclined towards technical analysis, and Glassnodes is something that you can use. So these are some of the resources which are available free of cost online. Do your research before you obviously enter into an investment. Now, this is from an investment side. Secondly, if you are on the technology side where you want to build something in the crypto space, again, there is immense potential in this, right from building exchanges, building wallets, building financial systems, building crypto security platforms. Today there are a lot of companies that are probably doing the policing around how transfers happens. Like, there is a lot of times that some things on the dark web happens, and there you have companies who kind of investigate what's happening, how has the money flown from which account to all of that. So there is a lot of security and compliance based on the crypto space. So that is something that you can look at. But obviously wallet, exchange, building your own crypto project is something that you can obviously look at. So these are some of the avenues that are obviously available for all of us here. And India being the powerhouse of probably technology, where you have the global technology behemoths, be it a Tata, TCS, or Infosys, or a Wipro. We give global technology companies a run for their money, and it is really, really important that we have good, reliable crypto projects coming from the Indian crypto and blockchain ecosystem.
So I there are a couple of questions here. I mean, obviously, we won't be able to talk about whether or not metaverse coin is good or not. That would be a whole different discussion. But one interesting question that has come up is from Saroj Verma, is that can crypto add to the volatility of the market? So if someone could take a shot at that.
Yeah, I think it depends which market, because crypto is inherently a volatile market. I don't know if crypto adds to volatility in any other market. Possibly because it's an additional asset class, it has those economic implications which would be there when there is any other additional asset class. For example, maybe the correlation of gold with stocks, etc. But the volatility in crypto is undeniable. It is something where probably a year's worth of volatility in the stock market may be seen in a much shorter period of time in the crypto market. But there is volatility in the commodities market, in the stock market as well. You see shares going from 40 rupees to 6 rupees in a day and things like that. Just recently with a major IPO, I think there was a huge crash. So there is volatility in other markets, but because of uh, the nature of the crypto market, which is a 24/7 global market, without any kind of regulator to impose circuit breakers or those kind of things, and any limited trading window, it is prone to volatility. Uh, and so, therefore, what I had said earlier, that people investing should be a little wary in terms of what is their exposure to the market. Is it proportionate to their overall wealth and risk appetite? So, as students, I don't know. I mean, some thumb rules I've read are not more than 5%, not more than 10%. I don't want to, as a lawyer, make any of those recommendations. But something small enough that you can afford to lose is the thumb rule that I've seen because of the volatility. And yeah, I mean, tread with caution, but also experiment and learn.
Right. No, coming to that, I mean, one of the mantras that I came across about investing in crypto very early on was, if you're going to expect 600% returns, be ready for 50% drops. So you have to have that mentality, and you have to be prepared that, Bitcoin can, it can go down to zero. There is a possibility. Will it or won't it? That's a whole different question. But, but the fact is that the technology is out of the bottle. It's the white paper has really made it possible for anyone. It's not just companies that can create their own tokens and tokenomics, but even when it comes to family businesses, right? And you can have a family token where you can create a token for your family, which can be uh, intergenerational, right? So you can create your own family NFT or a token, which which can be attached to your, which can be attached to your physical real estate or stocks or whatever you have, and you can build a whole tokenization of your assets. That said, that there is also tremendous opportunities for, recently I came across the Rohingya project, which is a project which has been started by the Rohingyas, the refugees of Burma, the Rohingya refugees, who have created a blockchain ecosystem on which they are doing financial and identification system. And it's a new protocol, and they've created their own cryptocurrency of sorts for the community of the Rohingya. So you're seeing a lot of places, the UN World Food Program has been using the blockchain and cryptonomics for its implementation of some of its programs. In fact, I think the World Food Program was even awarded some, either the Nobel Prize or one of those prizes for its efforts that it has taken in using blockchain for the refugee crisis, for solving the refugee crisis. Another interesting area, I mean, we can go on and on, we are only 3 minutes left, but I would like both Jaideep and Suraj to end the session with this, to answer this question. How do you foresee the future of cryptocurrency in India? What's your vision? What do you see is the most optimal, or the most, what do you perceive? How will it unfold in India? I mean, any one of you can start,
Sure. So I think, great session. Really appreciate the chambers to have organized this session firstly, and a very right and apt question as concluding remarks. So there is a fact that obviously came just a couple of days back. In the entire Indian ecosystem, there has been $638 million of funding that has gone into the crypto space, with 50 odd companies being funded, majority of them being the likes of the crypto exchanges that we heard of, right? So in 1 year, little less than $1 billion has been invested in crypto startups that have come out of India, right? And that is probably where we stand in terms of a career opportunity, in terms of building something unique for the world. I think companies like Matic, which is obviously a homegrown company, and many of the exchanges are also doing a wonderful job. And like we spoke about, some of the career opportunities for a lot of us, which are available, both if you are probably looking at the technology side or the finance side, it is immense. All you need to do is put down that time, look at only and only verifiable and valid resources. Don't go on what your friend or your peer has said, and believe in probably the fact that yes, technologically there are advancements that are being made, and try and build something that probably is going to solve a big problem, right? Anything that you do has to solve a problem, and then you have value for it that will come automatically. You don't have to chase those high valuations and all of that. If you are solving something that is solving a good problem, you will have the money, the success, the growth, the customers, everything that would obviously come into the fact. So we as a company are very hopeful. Mintingham is probably the first and the only registered investment advisory company which we've registered in India, right? Most of them obviously go to some of the tax havens, but obviously we, with guidance from obviously the Nishit Desai associate firm, have kind of set up our company very much in Bombay, because we feel and we believe that yes, what we are doing is completely legal, and at every step we take guidance from our lawyers just to see that we are doing things rightly. So I think the gates are just going to open. We're very hopeful of what the government is going to do in the next session, probably in the budget session, where they would have the bill coming up for discussion.
Yeah, I think the need of the hour is regulatory clarity. There is a lot of ambiguity under FEMA, securities laws, and tax laws. At the same time, there is enforcement action. So there has been some market practice which has evolved, and now suddenly there's some enforcement action. Of course, there are ambiguities. So it would be good that regulators move as soon as possible to clarify various ambiguities so that the industry can move ahead.
Great. So we are 5:31. I would, if there are any further questions, or I would have Shardul. Are you going to be giving the concluding remarks? I guess. So I'd give the stage to you.
Thank you so much. Respected President of the President of the Chamber in absentia, Mr. Korakiwala, respected Chairperson of Young Leaders Forum, Vidhi, respected all the senior members of IMC, my very dear friend and the moderator of today's session, Suril, Jaideep, and Suraj. Thank you so much, all of you, all three of you, all, for having spared your valuable time this Tuesday evening. Believe me, it was a very, very exciting and enriching experience for me. Although I have been always looking at cryptocurrency and Bitcoin from the other side as a person, but I was really very, very happy at the kind of discussions where we have been able to understand the various nuances which both our speakers, Suraj as well as Jaideep, have been able to take us, and very well moderated by Suril. Friends, only to give you a small background, unfortunately in India, yet the government of India has not been able to, make a decision as, what is cryptocurrency, whether it is a goods, whether it is services, whether it is property. And unfortunately, unless the government of India makes the decision, as rightly discussed by Jaideep, we do not know which side the government is going. Recently the GST department did conduct various searches on various cryptocurrency browsers, and they considered it, those browsers as they are giving out services, and they levied 18% GST. But unfortunately, this was something which they did without any regulatory backing on the same. But none of the regulatory, none of the cryptocurrency browsers wanted to make an issue out of it, and all of them complied with all what the GST department said. But definitely, being a unilateral move was not warranted. But I think, yes, the budget is something which we all look out for, and we hope that there will be much more clarity. And as rightly mentioned by Suril, there is huge opportunity for all of us, and it is something that even very small investments, as rightly mentioned by Suraj, also is something that we can start off with, and which we even don't mind losing out for, but it will give a flavor of what we are getting into. And definitely, I think the future holds out there. And it can definitely be used for a lot of positive and social reasons. And I'm sure this particular session, which is being hosted by YLF, is going to be very, very enriching. And we hope that Vidhi will have a more intense, maybe half-day program on cryptocurrencies. And I'm sure Suril and NDA, Nishit Desai Associates, who have always pioneered for looking at newer avenues of areas. So I'm very much thankful to Suril. I'm thankful to Jaideep and Suraj to have spared the valuable time. And I request all of you to please carry out this vote of thanks with a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. And I would like to also inform all of our panel, all our members present here, that the next program of YLF is going to be on the business of art and NFT on 25th of January. That again is a Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. on Zoom. I request all of you friends to please do take note of the same, and also please join us once again on the next event of YLF on 25th of January on business of art and NFT. Once again, thanks to all of you who have spared their valuable time and have joined here today. Once again, thanks to all of you, and goodbye. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay safe. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.